All right.
Yeah.
Gavin. We've got Gavin on the podcast. Gavin, thank you for being here, man.
Thank you. And thank you for that nice little nervous system reset. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah. I start every podcast with a couple deep breaths. I feel like it helps me personally. You know, anytime you're getting on a podcast or you're doing anything, you're putting something out into the world, you can feel yourself get a little nervous jitters in a good way, but the deep breaths always just bring you right back. And I always use it as a way to just kind of clear and center myself and always ask myself and open up for just setting the intention for whatever this conversation brings, whatever comes through, for it to be of the highest good and of the highest intention to support anybody who's listening and attract the right people to listen to it. So it always feels like a nice centering and intention setting.
I mean, if someone stops listening right now, they've gotten a ton of value from this
There we
podcast.
go.
like, there's a million things going on in our world. I made sure that I airplane moded my phone and things, but like, if we can take that, what did that take? 10 seconds?
Yeah.
15
10
seconds to reset and just calibrate our nervous system to a place where we're not frantic and we can just have a good conversation. It's wild, the spillover effects of that.
It really is. And this is something that you look at closely in the work that you do, right?
Yeah, man. Like, working with people with multiple 6-figure, 7-figure businesses, there is always a million things to worry about. And there's always so much external noise. I think that a big thing that I can help people with is like stepping back, getting yourself out of the cyclone or tornado that is the day-to-day world in the weeds, and going like, can we be an objective observer of what's happening in your business and your life right now and learn from it? Because I was on a podcast with a guy who talks to like agency owners, and it's like, that's literally all it is like, when your business gets bigger, you can iterate faster if you're looking for feedback. But we're so busy judging ourselves for messing up that we don't look for the feedback, right? So giving ourselves the opportunity to just step back, I think, is such a big thing, because as we've been circling around here, we just have to be present to what's actually going on in the world, or in our world, right?
Yeah, that's so key. And that feedback loop is like, the tighter that feedback loop can be, the quicker that you grow, right? That's directly correlated to that. But it takes a certain type of person. It's either you got to be open or seeking the feedback, or be curious for what is the feedback here and looking for that to then implement. Otherwise, life will just keep trying to shove it down your face until you are forced to.
Yeah, man. Life, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will give you the lesson until you learn it. So if you're angry about something that quote unquote keeps happening to you, take a step back and think about it. Like, what is this trying to teach me?
What's a lesson that you're working through right now? What's a lesson that God or the universe has given to you right now?
So the big one for me, this is a great question. I'm excited to talk about it. The big one for me is that the universe has my back, and has like, there are much greater things in store for me than I can even imagine. So that's a big thing that I'm like, it's a story that I'm rewiring in my brain. And what's been fascinating is, since I've opened my eyes to look for this, as Joshua Church calls them, I'm getting a lot of winks from the universe. One of those being, there aren't many days that I don't see 11:11 on my phone. It's wild. Or my computer. I'll just look up and it's like, oh, there it is. It's 11:11 again. The universe. And I like, at this point, it's been about a month, I just laugh. I'm like, there it is again. Like, and what's awesome is, the more we reiterate that, like a little bit of a bigger lesson here, the more we continue to look for it, and the more we see it, as you've said before, and Abraham Hicks says, the better it gets, the better it gets. So now I'm starting to see all these other things where the universe is trying to show me, hey, I got your back. I got your back. We're on to something big here. Just keep following the flow. So that's, but the really important thing there is, like, it takes a lot of time. Like, there's no hack, there's no shortcut. It just takes time and reps and evidence to rewire our brain.
Absolutely. That's beautifully said. And thank you for sharing that as well. It's always great to hear that and need that reminder. But one of the things you hit on there that really resonates is is the more you look for it and the more you acknowledge that wink, if you will, that serendipitous moment, that synchronicity, that miracle that's happening, the more that you point that out and be like, wow, look at that. That's amazing. Or wow, okay, I see you. And you just chuckle, right? Then the more you're gonna see it. And the cool part about this is just neuroscience. This comes down to our reticular activating system in our brain and looking for filtering what we're seeing in our reality. And we're starting to see more of this. So you're gonna find more of that confirmation. And as you say, evidence, you're gonna build more evidence to support that belief. And then you're gonna solidify that belief.
Yeah, and I've explained this to a lot of people by saying like we've done it the other way for years and
Right.
decades, right? Like, of course I hit traffic, or of course I hit every red light, or of course it's raining on this day, right? What if we just flip the script on the of courses and it's like, well, of course this is always flowing to me. Of course this is happening. Of course I hit every green light and everything flowed for me, right? And I like to challenge people as well to like, I had a call with a client last week where it's like, how small can we make your wins? Right. So he was saying, well, I don't see my wins enough. I don't see victories enough. And I'm like, okay, well, what is a victory? And he's like, well, every time I enroll a new client, I'm like, dude, like that's way too big and too far in between things, even if you're enrolling them every couple days, right? It's like, what if we could like look smaller for those wins, like every little possible thing you could think of as a win or as a wink from the universe. That's when we really start to build momentum and it starts to snowball on itself.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm. I'm feeling a little moved with emotion right now just hearing this, because this conversation is a big wink for me right now, and hearing this and hearing you share in these ways and hearing these reminders are very beautiful and right on time for me. I just wrote that down. Look for the smaller victories, look for the smaller wins, and identify what those metrics are, because that's something that's resonating with me personally. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'm again, of course.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. I know. It's like, of course, right? Today, like I have Gavin on my calendar for a podcast. So it's just like,
you needed it.
Incredible. And you need it. Exactly. So, and of course, everybody listening to this, like, of course you're listening to this right now. If you're still listening to this right now and you're hanging on these words, like, of course, this is an of course moment. This is a wink moment. Like, welcome. And
what is it that, there's something that you can pull out of this, that you get to pull out of this because you're here today.
Right.
That's where it gets nice and woo woo.
Yeah, totally. The thing I want to ask you about too is because you're an athlete. I don't want to call you a former athlete, because you're an athlete and just in what you do and how you approach everything. But you were a former professional athlete, a former athlete at a very, very high level. And there was something you were talking about in terms of building the evidence and taking and practice and forming that belief. And tell me a little bit about the discipline that takes, that you see translate to the mindset side of things, and the combination between the discipline of showing up as an athlete and applying that to mindset principles, applying that to personal development.
Yeah, I love working with former athletes, mainly because I know you. I'm like, bro or sis, I know you. Right. And it's actually this really wonderful dichotomy. A good friend of mine and I were just at the gym a few months ago and chatting, and he had started seeing a counselor, and I said, so what's the biggest thing you pulled out from your sessions with the counselor? And he said, I got to give up the athlete mindset. And I found this fascinating because we put these athletes on pedestals, right?
Right.
And for good reason. And there are so many really, really good things we can learn from being athletes, which I will get to. But I want to be careful not to, get people excited about the hustle and grind and trying to win, right? I'm often reminded of The Infinite Game, Simon Sinek, right? And if people haven't heard of this, I'll briefly do it. Like, right, we have finite games and infinite games. Baseball, finite game. We've got rules, we've got opponents, we've got a way to win or lose, we've got a way to end the game. Business, life, fitness, health, any journey you're on is an infinite game. There really aren't rules, there really aren't opponents. And like, we could even argue that even death isn't the end of the game, right? So what we often do mistakenly as high performers, I like to even like lump in people who weren't athletes, but they look at themselves as like high performers. Like they're driven. We try and win the game, but we're applying finite rules to an infinite game. And we're never going to win that game because you can't. There is no winning the game. Winning is actually continuing to play, right? So
Boom.
I think that's what's incredibly powerful, kind of as on the opposite side of the athlete's mindset. Now back to can you just remind me of the question again? Because I just blacked out.
I don't even remember the question, but we got to where we needed to go. To be honest with you, I'm hanging on every word. Yeah, okay. Sure. I remember talking about. So you were saying that one of your clients was talking about unlearning the athlete mindset.
Totally,
because of the finite game to the infinite game. Was that the shift, or what?
So I dove into that, and it was a really good back and forth conversation on like, yeah, so the athlete's mindset, right, is like, I'm going to do whatever I can to win. And then they're always trying to like figure out why they haven't won, right? Or this is what happened to me so let's take, for example, my money story was I didn't have like a specific mission or purpose at the time, right? So then it was like, okay, well, the thing that I can measure is money, right? I want to win. Let's measure money. Well, my goal was more. Well, guess what happens when your goal is more? The goalposts keep moving, right?
Yeah.
5K months, 10K months, 20K months, 100K months. It ain't enough because it's always going to be more. So I had to figure out, okay, well, what is the more that I can actually shoot for? Because then the rest of it, once I hit that, then the rest of it is just more of a game, and it takes the pressure off of me, right? Because I was always just fighting the same thing. So I think like the athlete high performer mindset is really, really powerful in many senses in terms of discipline, focus. That was the question you asked. We came back. Discipline and focus, and like what is it where you're delaying gratification. Like, I know that I need to work hard now and I won't see the result of that thing until later. These are all really good things that in the moment really matter. But when we look big picture, we have to stop thinking like we're trying to win something and start thinking like it's a constant improvement. It's a consistent battle, so to speak. And the real win is just in continuing to play the game, right? Because that's and also enjoying the game. Like, let's have some fun playing the game too.
Yeah, that's a nice one there. It's interesting. So I was one of the previous guests on this podcast, Brandon Moreno, who's a UFC world champion. He was saying how his goal, I asked him, was like, what's your biggest goal right now? And he said it's to be happy. And I thought that was such an interesting answer. Oh. Yeah, I know. and he was talking about this really nice mix of dreaming big, right? And having these big goals, being the best, getting back his belt, holding his belt for a couple years. But then bringing it down to the micro goals, right? Of like, what's the micro goal in front of me to get there? It's like, that's a big lofty goal. What's the micro goal in front of me to get there? Have a good training camp or go on this vacation with my family, right? Like these micro goals to help get there. And I thought that was such an interesting concept of being able to oscillate between this big vision and these lofty, ambitious goals, and then also scale it down to being able to execute on what's in front of you.
And that's where I think the athlete's mindset helps us, right? If we can harness it in the right way, it's, I have this big thing, that I'm chasing. Here's another key piece that I really like about what he said. I am already satisfied and happy without it, and therefore I can be satisfied and happy with the belt. Right? Because otherwise, if you think the belt's going to make you happy, it will for a brief moment, right? We've both been there, right? You finish the race, you win the game, you win the championship, and then 2 days later, everyone's kind of forgotten about it, and you're like, well, I thought this would be different, right?
Now what?
yeah, now what? Like, now I got to go do the next thing, right? So for him, it's like, okay, like I've got this thing and I'm chasing towards it, and then we need to pull it down to, we need to go into the weeds, and we need to look at, like you always said to me when we were working together, what's the next indicated step,
Yep.
right? How do we take the next step along the yellow brick road towards where we want to go? Because if you don't take that step, you're screwed. Like, you can't jump steps. That's just the way life is. And again, life will come down and say, hey, you tried to jump a step. I'm putting you back to start, right? Do not pass go, do not collect $100, right?
Yeah.
I like
And
that a lot.
there's such a paradox there that you touched on briefly, which is that, and I'm curious to get some, maybe a story that you have around this for yourself or your client. I've seen this totally to be true as well. But when you can be happy now without the thing, then the thing comes, right? It's like it's such a paradox. It's such a
Yeah.
it's such a paradox. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
I literally 2 hours ago got off a call with a client who is striving to hit her first 7-figure year in her company. And they have had, their average month has been about 70K a month. So they're right there.
Yep.
They've hit a 99K month, right? Just didn't hit 100K, 99K a month. And this month, August, was 62. And she's beating herself up. She's like, I just can't seem to get there, right? And it's like this whole, I know I'm a 7-figure coach. I'm doing all that, like all this stuff, right? And it's like, but you can't appreciate the fact that you just made $62,000
Right.
and are supporting 6 team members and are supporting hundreds of women in their wellness journey. You gotta appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right. And the more you can appreciate that, the more you can, like, what you appreciate appreciates. Right. And this, I'm always reminded of this Ed Milet, right? Blissfully dissatisfied. Right. I am blissful. I am grateful. I appreciate what I have, because I mean, man, like, how can you not be overwhelmed by gratitude with some of the things that happen in life, especially when you're building your own business and you're doing great things in the world?
And just at a baseline, being healthy and alive and able to move and breathe. Like, yeah, seriously.
Food on the table, roof over your head. I mean, I can talk to you from a different country in real time on this box thing with electricity in it somehow. Like, it's wild, right? Yeah. How can we not be grateful for the time that we live in? And that doesn't mean you have to be satisfied. You can still chase more. And in chasing more, being grateful and being appreciative of what you have, like you said, will get you more, right? Because again, the way that our brains are wired, when you appreciate something, you get more of it. It's literally the way it works. I know there's a better way,
like gravity.
Yeah, it's a law. Like, this is a law of the way our brains work. When you appreciate it, you see more of it, more opportunities come to see more of it, and therefore it continues to multiply.
Yeah. And that's a leap there. That's a bridge. That's a gap, if you will, for the rational person who's focused on, I need to see the results, right? And that little step there takes belief, it takes faith, it takes knowing. And one of the things I've been working on a lot lately is shifting from belief to knowing. Like, there's a shift in that difference between, like, I believe this to be true, or I'm having faith that this will happen. Like, I hope it's like hope, belief, and then it's just knowing. No, I know this to be true. I know this in my bones. Like, there's a slightly different energetic tone to that. And that's one of the things I'm working on right now. But regardless of that gap there, it takes that. It requires that knowing. It requires that belief, because especially in that athlete mindset, you're looking down at results and you're like, wait, but I'm not seeing the result yet. Like, for your client, the bank says 62,000 this month, or 99,000. Doesn't say 100. Like, this is what it is. And we can't let what is get in the way of what is becoming. It'll block us from actually allowing what is becoming to flow through.
And this is where you and I could probably talk for an entire day and night on just like these paradoxes of life. Right. And I
growth,
love it so
achievement,
much.
The paradoxes of all of these.
There's so many paradoxes that, again, like you said, to the rational mind, make no sense to the like the logic, the conscious mind. But this is, so many people don't recognize that our subconscious mind is 95% or more.
Right.
And we're trying to make changes on this like tiny little thing of logic. This doesn't need to make sense, because it actually makes sense physiologically in your brain in a way that you can't even comprehend, right? This is the same thing as the universe telling me things that I can't even comprehend yet, right? And I'll even go a step further. You mentioned faith, right? Like, you look at people who are incredibly religious, right? Who, like, they know there is a God. And that's what is faith. Faith is believing in, or, recognizing something that you cannot see. That's exactly what we're talking about with like
Right.
winning the belt, winning the championship, or even, getting the 7 figures or whatever
Right.
it is.
Hitting whatever your goal is.
Hitting your goal, right? Is like, you have to, like you said, know and have this like deep belief before you will see it. You taught me that too. It's not, I'll believe it when I see it. It's, I'll see it once I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's another one that I've lived by for years now. I'll see it once I believe it. And we could probably take it a step further now. I'll see it once I know it.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah. So good. So good. I want to talk about hockey a little bit.
Perfect.
You grew up playing hockey.
Yeah.
What, I feel like the Gavin that played hockey is a different Gavin than the Gavin that's talking here today. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Anyone who doesn't see this on video, I'm shaking my head vigorously and just taking a moment. Yeah. I think we all say this at some point in our lives. If I knew then what I know now,
Right.
who knows? That being said, you have to just know that everything happens exactly as it's supposed to happen, in divine timing, in perfect timing. The Gavin that played hockey was playing hockey for all the wrong reasons. I remember a podcast episode you did on Find the Others with Christina Rice.
Yep.
Amazing podcast if you really want to go off the deep end in the woo-woo.
I'll put it in the show notes. It's a good one.
It's great. One thing she talks about that I have really thought about a lot is foundational frequency. And the best way to make sense of this is, let's say 2 people are going to the gym to start exercising, and one of them goes because they hate their body and they want to be different, and the other one goes because they want to see what their body can do. Who do you think is going to enjoy it more and get better results? It's obvious, right? They could do the exact same thing, but they're coming from a different foundational frequency. They're coming from what I like to call a higher vibration. And my foundational frequency when it came to hockey was, please love me, please accept me. I'd had a tough time making friends. I was a weird, awkward, skinny, tall kid who didn't really fit in anywhere. And this was my opportunity to fit in, right? So I was playing this sport that I was really good at because people liked me, not because I enjoyed it or anything like that. Now, yeah, there was some enjoyment in it, but when I look back, I didn't really love it that much. I liked how it made me feel. And so when everything is coming from that place of like, please accept me, please love me, you're never going to get rewarded the way that you could if you came from a higher foundational frequency. So like, did I have the skill set to play professional hockey? Possibly, but we'll never know because I wasn't coming from a place where I could really let that loose. I was so focused on like fear and scarcity and needing to be liked rather than letting my skill set shine.
Right.
That makes
Interesting.
sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Do you feel like that was like, how do you view that in hindsight now, or in context towards the growth that you've had and to lead you to where you're at? Like, how do you put that?
I think that it's the thing, if not one of the key things in why people trust me to coach them on this so much. And I learned something. So I've spoken in front of a lot of groups now. And the most recent one, I was speaking and I lead with, so anyone out there who, maybe you could put this in the show notes too. There's a grainy YouTube video from 2005 of me getting my ass kicked in a hockey fight. It's amazing. New Year's Eve, in front of 10,000 people, Portland, Oregon, I get pummeled in a hockey fight. And I lead with that on this one presentation that I do. And as soon as that happens, as soon as people figure out what's going on and they're like, okay, this guy's not weird, and I kind of explain the context, the entire energy in the room shifts. And I was trying to figure out why. And I think I've figured it out, that the one thing every high performer, so like every entrepreneur, business owner that's at these conferences, they're high performers. They're paid to get there. They paid to be in the room. They want to win, right? We talked about that. The thing they're most afraid of is unfulfilled potential, or like blowing it all, right? Like being so close and like losing it all, which is exactly what I did. I was like probably 2 steps away, when you think about where I actually was, from like playing in the NHL, which is every hockey player's dream. And I completely imploded. Yet I'm still here. Yet I'm actually speaking in front of you in a conference room, right? So like, you can overcome that too, right? And that gives me like instant authority, instant credibility. So it's been this shift of like, I totally blew everything and ruined my life, to this is the reason why I'm perfectly suited to teach you this.
That's so good. Oh, I love that. What a great framing to have with that. And what a great story to tell in the context that you can author that. Like, you could be sitting there as well and being like, I pissed away my career, or I had a chance to be great and now I'm not, and to live with that regret and hold on to that forever. But I just, the power and what speaks volumes to the mindset that you practice and to the mindset you've created for yourself, is that you're authoring the story to show that is why I am where I am. And that is why that set the foundation for me to become this next version of myself and step into it. And that's incredible.
Actually, like, probably, well, that this remains to be written, but probably have a greater impact on the world
100%.
than I ever could have.
100%. I feel like you already have. I feel like you already have. And hey,
Thank
man,
you.
You made it to the NHL ice briefly, did you not?
I did. One game, well, one warm up, and that's a day that they can, no one can ever take that experience from me as an emergency backup goalie, getting the call. I got to suit up with Alex Ovechkin and some of the greats of the game of our generation. I have his stick right behind me, and I still think he's going to go down as the greatest goal scorer of all time. And that's pretty dang cool. So I will take that. The universe works in mysterious ways.
That's right. I love it. It was just like, yeah, it's super, super, super cheeky in that way. So that's amazing. And now you're focused on supporting other high performers, business owners specifically, but just various high performers in the mindset realm, in the field of mindset. What's the importance of that? Like, why does mindset matter? As we've been talking about mindset this entire conversation.
Yeah. Why does this matter?
Yeah.
I truly believe that, limiting beliefs and stories that are not serving us, they know no bounds. They don't discriminate whatsoever. The first time I spoke on this, there were several millionaires in the room, and I was so nervous that they were going to like laugh me off the stage. And what happened instead was, well, I don't know how many actual millionaires there were, but of the 3 that I knew there were, 2 of them followed up with coaching with me, and one of them was crying after about 30 minutes. And because I had, touched on something that, again, we talked before off air about the side door of like, coming through the business development world that really is personal development. And like, we had touched on something that really caught her. So I think that if you feel like there's more for you in whatever it is that you are pursuing, business, sport, mastery of anything, and you can't figure out logically why you're not there, there's probably one of two reasons why, or both. Time, right? You probably just need more time and more reps, and or something between the ears that is trying to keep you safe. Because you talk about the guy who wants to win the belt or keep the belt, that is amazing, and any one of us would want that. But our subconscious brains, there's some places where that scares the heck out of us, because you're seen in a different light. Your life changes forever. You are now known. You can't go out in public. People, shred you on social media. Like, there are a lot of other things that we don't think about. And the same thing goes for getting out there and building a bigger business, or, any of those things. There's a different level of expectation at those points. And that's why I've noticed that it's actually the people who are at the highest levels that appreciate this work the most.
Very, very true. It's all in between the ears. Like one of my mindset coaches, Giorgio, always said that it's like you don't lift a finger without the mental impulse to do so first.
Yes.
Like nothing happens without what's going on in between the ears. And I think that's another thing that high performers and athletes in particular can appreciate, because no matter what you're doing, it's you versus yourself. It's you getting better against yourself inside. It's that internal. It's that it's hitting that edge zone, as I've long called it.
Yes.
Where you want to give up and you want to throttle back. It's like it's such an intimate moment when you're pushing, and everything in you wants to give up. Like that's where the growth happens. And not only in the physical pursuit, like if you're running or doing a workout or whatever you're playing in whatever sport you are, and you're hitting that threshold, but I've always been thinking, how do we translate that threshold zone, that edge zone, into other areas of our life? What's that uncomfortable conversation that feels like you're at that threshold zone? What's that activity or that task that you can do, that thing you've been putting off, that ask for something, that investment into yourself? Like those are all different forms of those edge zones and those threshold zones. And that's where growth is going to happen. It's exclusively where it happens.
Yeah. It's, as you're talking about that, I think about all the times when I get emails, text messages, WhatsApp messages from clients when they are reaching that edge zone and they're having a full panic attack, like full freak out. Right. And I just chime in and I'm just like, yep. And that's okay. And then they're more mad at me, but like, they're totally like in the moment, recognizing not only their fear and their new limiting beliefs that are coming to the surface, but also they're like that this is exactly what I wanted them to see. This is exactly what I wanted them to feel. And this is the perfect opportunity for us to learn and to pull something out of it. Like that's, and they're like secretly angry and happy at me at the same time. And they're just like, oh, I can't believe you got me, and it's just like, yeah, here we are.
Yep, here we are. This is it. This is that moment, and it's so important. And talk to me about the importance of both being a coach and someone who is being coached, to have that person to be able to be there when you're going through that. It's like the person in the roller coaster you can like turn to and squeeze when you're going down the drop, or put your head on, or throw up on, right, or whatever it is, or smile with. But tell me a little bit about the importance of that, both from being so deep into the coaching space.
Yeah, well, what I like to think about when I think about being a coach for someone. So a lot of people that bring us in as coaches in the company I work for, they're almost bringing on another team member in their business, right?
Yeah.
You're essentially it's like you're paying another salary and you're bringing on a team member, right? But the best part about this team member is we are completely objective. Well, to a point, we are as objective as you can be,
right?
Because we don't really have any skin in the game, right? Like in terms of, if you make more money, I don't necessarily make more money. Right. If you make less money, I don't necessarily make less money. I'm here because it's my job to help you move forward. And so I've long said that we can't see the label inside the bottle. And we are so in the hurricane that is, the bottle. What a good coach can do, and what I've seen from both sides, is put it into perspective and help you see the bigger picture of what's going on right now. So when you're having that moment where you just want to like throw up, or you want to just like jump ship, a coach can be like, well, hold on, let's look at this objectively. Like, what do you need to
Right.
learn here for the things that are happening, right? And also on that note, like, I have several clients, it's really sad, but recently, like, a lot of like really tough stuff has happened, family deaths and losses, and I've been one of the first people that they come talk to, right? Because they don't have they're the strong person that everyone comes to talk to in their life. They don't have the person to talk to, right? And so when you are a power player, as a lot of the people that are probably listening to this are, it's like, who's your person, right? Who's the person you go to, right? Who's holding you accountable, and then also who's the person you go to for support. That's what a coach is. It's like, well, I can go and talk to them, and then I can start to put the pieces together, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. That's great. And it's something, thankfully, I think that more people are becoming open to, having a coach, having a mentor, having a therapist, whatever it might be, someone in your corner that can be there objectively to support you and call out your blind spots and see the label from outside of the bottle, and the
Yeah,
value that that can provide. And it makes sense. It's like, okay, if you had a coach as an athlete, like, why would you not have a coach for life?
that's it. Like, you think of like every single every single one of the best athletes we've ever seen had a coach. Whether they listened to them or not, we don't know.
Right.
But they
Right.
did have someone who is providing structure to what they did, right? So that's exactly what we do when it comes to life, when it comes to business, when it comes to your marriage, like whatever coach you
Right.
hire, that's what we do, right? And
Amazing.
that's what I expect as well as a coachee.
Absolutely. Gavin, man, this has been an awesome conversation, and time's flown by as it always does. I want to thank you for coming on, and just see if you have anything you want to share with the listeners, before we wrap up here.
There's one thing I always like to share. If people haven't heard it, like, I think it's a really powerful frame. So, um, people will probably listen to this because personal development, they want to learn more. And I'll just encourage you, if you're listening to this and if you're still here, you already have everything you need inside of you to succeed. There isn't anything you're missing objectively. This and a lot of the other educational things that you're, bringing into your experience are definitely helpful and are going to help make sense of a lot of things. But everything you need is already inside of you. Oftentimes it's, muddled up and covered up by like emotions that aren't serving you and stories that aren't serving you. Just don't let a lack of belief in yourself be the thing that stops you from succeeding, because it's already in there. You just got to believe in yourself. That's all it is.
Absolutely. Well said. Well
Thank you.
said, Gavin. Thank you, my brother. It's a pleasure. Excited to do this again sometime soon. Next time in person. And
Yes.
yeah, thank you for stopping by, bro.
Thanks, Joshua. I appreciate it.
All right. Until next time.